One of the most basic but crucial skills to learn when adapting to a new 3D program or to using 3D for the first time is how to maneuver inside of that application, maneuver in space. If you have a difficult time doing this, it makes everything else much more difficult to do. But the more fluidity you gain in maneuvering throughout a 3D scene, the more easily you can create, edit, animate, light and texture those scenes to create your finished renders or animations. Now we're going to look at some of the basic maneuvering methods inside of Modo, and if we look here, we have essentially two different types of viewports visible here, just in the basic layout. In the top left, the lower left, and the lower right, these are essentially perspectiveless views known as orthographic views. And these are going to behave very much like Photoshop or Illustrator, where you essentially have the ability to zoom in and out and to pan around. So if I look at any one of these views, I can hold the Alt key or the Option key if you're on a Mac. I can click and drag to move around. Now you see that the views stay oriented to one another. So if I move left and right, even though I'm on this lower left-hand view, the top left-hand view also moves left and right. And if I move up and down, you can see that the lower right-hand view will also keep itself aligned. And this just allows you to more easily keep everything visible in your scene. And you can untie these so that they move independently, but we'll look at doing that a bit later on. So this would be very similar to holding down the space bar in Photoshop and just moving your image around. All right, so if we hold Alt or Option and Control, this will then give us the ability to zoom in and out. So you can see if I click and drag here on this lower left view, all of the views, the top left view, which is the top view, and the lower right view, which is the right hand view, will also zoom in and out. And again, they will keep each other oriented so that you're looking at the same area of space in all three of these views. Notice that the perspective view in the top right is not changed because it is untethered from these views, which is important once we get moving in there. So this is essentially all that you really have to worry about in an orthographic view, is moving around, which is done with the Alt or Option key, and then Alt and Control or Option and Control will allow you to zoom in and out. You can also do this using the widgets in the top right corner of each of these views. You can see that this one will allow you to pan around, and this one will allow you to zoom in and out. Though it is important to note that the zoom function is only going to be based around the center of the screen. Whereas if we use the Alt and Control and then click and drag, we're going to zoom towards whatever is underneath the mouse. So if I take this out here and I just use this view, you see we're going right into the middle of this little blocky city. But if I hold Option or Alt and Control and mouse over the right-hand side, we'll zoom in towards that right-hand edge of the city. Okay, so the same kind of thing actually happens inside of a 3D view. Now this is a perspective view in the top right-hand corner, except we'll add an extra component. So just like with the orthographic views, we can still just pan around. However, that's done with Alt or Option and Shift. You can see that this allows us to move around. Okay, so I move up, down, left, right, but you'll notice that there's also some perspective involved. If I'm down here, you see we're starting to look more flat along the rooftops, and as if I move up here, we actually start to see the parallax, and we can see the far edge of the city from behind the downtown area. Okay, so that is Alt or Option, and Shift allows us to do this. And again, there is a widget up here at the top, so just so you know, you can always do that, but it's better to learn the key commands as you get more versatility in your movement. Now, with just Alt or Option by itself, we get the Rotate tool, and Modo uses a trackball style rotation where we're rotating around whatever our current center of focus is. So you can see I'm rotating around roughly the middle of the city right now, and I can click and drag around. Dragging left to right will rotate me in that direction. Dragging up and down will rotate me around there, and then you can kind of go around in circles, and you can see you can really rotate your view to just about any kind of perspective that you want to. And then Option or Alt and Control, just like in the orthographic views, will allow you to zoom. And once again, this is mouse context sensitive. So if I zoom out here and I mouse over a point on this far left side, you can see I zoom right into that rooftop. or over here, and I zoom into this part of the city, and that will allow me to move around more fluidly. Now, another thing that you can do is sometimes you'll get have a larger scene, or you'll have a bunch of things in your scene, and it's easy to get kind of off-centered. You know, say I'm around here, and I don't want to be rotating around this point in space. I really want to rotate around the center of the city. Well, in that case, I can press the A key, and it will center up what we have visible. If you happen to have things selected, so we'll talk about making selections specifically later on, but if I click on the polygon button in the top left corner here and just select, I'm just going to hold shift and select 4 of these polygons here. If I press Shift A, it will actually center me around that selection. So now I'm centered into kind of this little section of the city, and any movement that I do rotation based is going to be around those 4 rooftops. Okay, I can still zoom out, and I can move and recenter myself, but I can always press Shift A to get back to that selection, and I can press A to center on basically everything visible. All right. Now, one important thing to remember is that there is a fixed amount of kind of draw distance that the OpenGL renderer can handle, and this is something very similar to if you ever played old arcade games, especially old racing games. This was something that was very prevalent. If you looked at buildings or mountains off in the distance while you're driving towards them, they would kind of pop in as you drove along. And that's just because they would go from outside of the view area to moving inside, and they would pop up, and then you would have those mountains or buildings or trees or whatever visible. Now, the same kind of thing happens here inside of Modo, but it is adapted dynamically based on whatever you currently have selected or whatever you're currently centered on. So right now, if I press again Shift A, you can see I'm centered around these 4 rooftops. Let's get this even more specific. I'm just going to select a single one, and now we're pretty far in here. So if I zoom out, you can see that it actually keeps this entire scene pretty well in its visible range. But if I just press A and get everything selected, and then if I just pick a little spot here in the very center of space, and I'm just going to maneuver down here, this is kind of street level, and let's zoom in here. And now if I go down towards the edge here, you'll actually start to see there we go. You can see that everything starts to peel away. Now, this scene is not so large that this is a big issue, but it's something to keep in mind. Occasionally, you will see this happen, and it's really nothing wrong with your scene. All that's happening is you're reaching the kind of edge of the dynamic draw distance, and then you may need to recenter. Either press A to center on your entire scene, or make a selection and press Shift A and center in on that, and then it will readjust your draw distance, and that kind of issue should go away. All right, so this is something very worth practicing. As I said, not being able to do this will be a great hindrance to any future work that you do in any 3D application, Modo or Maya or 3ds Max. If you can't maneuver inside of the 3D space, it makes it very difficult to work effectively. So take some time and practice moving around, getting to different areas. You can select a polygon just by clicking on polygons here and click on it, and then press Shift A in order to zoom in, and it will allow you to figure out how to more optimally move throughout the 3D space. And once you have that down, it's going to be much easier to go on and create just about anything that you want to, because if you can't maneuver around something as you create it, it will make it very difficult to actually do so. So this is a good thing to practice and spend some time on. And then once you've got that down, and this will be something that you will continue to work on, as you learn the entire application, but keep working on it, and it will allow you to work better and more efficiently inside of this 3D application. That does it for this one. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next lesson.